Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. This is the racetrack that used to be known as Mosport. And this weekend we're celebrating, as we have done in the past few years, the masters of Mosport. Some of the riders who have ridden here in the past and done well here at Mosport. Right now I'm joined by the CSBK Director of Competition from Mopar CSBK, Colin Frasher, a fellow that's been around this racetrack for a few decades and a fellow that has a feeling for the history. Colin, thanks for taking the time to talk with us. And you and I have just gone through this photo display, some fantastic photos from the past.
Yeah, a lot of great memories and some stuff that maybe I didn't remember that it's good to see, and an awful lot of great races and a lot of interesting people. You know, we were looking at some of the photos from the World Championship events, and those events in the late 70s were gigantic and very influential. A lot of people who were young at the time, like me, were at those, and it very much affected my career direction.
We had both World Superbike and MotoGP as it's known now, and it's the only place in Canada that's been able to host those.
Well, it's actually confusing history because all the classes have changed so much. So you imagine in 1967 we had what is now MotoGP, and at that time the premier class was 500. So, you know, Giacomo Agostini, Mike Halewood stayed at the Flying Dutchman down in the 401, went bowling together because there was nothing else to do. They went to Oshawa and hung out, and they raced here. And of course that was like the last big race of that era before Honda pulled out for quite a long time. Then that of course turned into MotoGP. That world of Grand Prix racing is now referred to as MotoGP. Then we get to Formula 750, which ran here 3 times in the late 70s, early 80s.
Which I referred to as World Superbike.
Well, it's kind of the precursor, similar kinds of rules, and of course then that got replaced by a true production-based class, street-based motorcycles, which is World Superbike. That was 98, 99, no, I'm going the wrong way, 89, 90, 91.
And the track itself, though, the layout obviously hasn't changed. The elevation changes haven't changed. It's still the same racetrack that Halewood rode on, Sacato rode on, Roberts rode on, and now our future stars of the future are on.
Well, it's a funny situation here at Mosport because hardly any track is the same, and almost literally the layout is the same, so the lap records really reflect the change in the track. You know, some of the runoffs improved, there's been a little bit of paving here and there, I mean in terms of the width changing and whatnot, but the actual physical layout is the same as when those guys raced on the track, so all those lap records really do reflect the onset of technology and the development therein. And of course, really now you wouldn't probably build a racetrack that had this many blind turns and this much elevation, and it's all of those things that don't happen anymore on new tracks that make this track so much fun, and the reason why the top riders really look forward to performing here at Mosport.
You know, Colin, as we talk about the past, we have to consider the future, and you know better than I that we have a rider in World Superbike now. Brett McCormick has taken his act to Europe. What do you suppose are the chances that Brett might come home and bring some of his friends with him to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park?
Well, certainly they're doing an awful lot of development here, and it's a huge investment. You know, improving a physical plant this big is an immense amount of money and effort and planning, and they're looking for bigger and better events. I certainly can't predict what the future holds. Of course, if Brett does continue to climb the ladder, we'd all love to be able to see him race closer to home than Utah. Who knows what will happen there? I mean, you'll laugh, but even his sponsors, which is a big Czechoslovakian brewery, are aware of the interest here. I guess they get a lot of response and emails and things from Canadian fans, so they've even looked into that maybe they need to start distributing their beer in Canada, and if something like that happened, obviously that would be terrific for Brett and for racing and the whole pull-through. And if you have marketing happening on an international level that includes McCormick, well then your suggestion that a race might be possible becomes much more likely.